Us. Gun control is poised to take center stage at the Minnesota Capitol in the final days of this session. Northern News Now's Larissa Millis takes a look at what some of our local lawmakers want to see happen and why one of them in particular could be the deciding vote.
Well, you may notice a picture on my sweater. That's a picture of my sister, Barbara.
In 1992, Joan Peterson's sister was shot and killed in a domestic shooting. Since then, Peterson has advocated for gun violence prevention and serves as the co-president of Northland Brady Protect Minnesota. She hopes to see gun laws pass in Minnesota this session.
The states that have stronger gun laws have fewer gun deaths, so we know gun laws work. And I don't buy the argument that comes from the gun lobby, gun rights side that says gun laws don't work. They do work. We have proof that they work.
In April, the DFL-controlled House passed the Public Safety Omnibus Bill, which included universal background checks for all gun purchases and red flag laws, which would allow temporary removal of firearms from those deemed a danger to themselves or others. The bill passed on party lines, something Republican Representative Spencer Igo finds concerning.
To see a bill that moves forward in committees without any bipartisan support, when you have sheriffs across the state speaking out about how they don't think it's going to work or how it's unconstitutional, to see a bill like that signed into law would be devastating.
Igo believes preventing gun violence lies in prosecuting more crime and funding mental health resources.
Further legislation is only going to keep the good people from getting their guns, and the bad people are still going to get guns. So what do we have to do? We have to prosecute criminals.
The Minnesota Senate's public safety bill did not include gun violence measures, so the bill is in conference committee, where both bodies are working on a compromised bill. Duluth DFL Senator Jen McEwen hopes a bill with gun laws gets signed by the governor this session.
I would like to see stronger legislation, frankly, than those two measures. Those are sort of baseline, just very common sense measures that we really do need to see.
McEwen also wants bans on sales of assault weapons and a buyback program. In Duluth, Larissa Millis, Northern News Now.
And when the bill is out of the conference committee, it'll go back to a floor vote in both the House and Senate. If that vote does get back to the Senate, things could get interesting since the DFL only has a one-vote majority. A lot of eyes are on State Senator Grant Housechild, a DFLer, a freshman DFLer representing much of St. Louis County. He hasn't shared much about his stance on new gun legislation. His office said he was not available for an interview today, but we hope to hear from him this week. Meanwhile, in Wisconsin, lawmakers in recent years have failed to reach agreements on gun legislation. This year, Wisconsin Republicans introduced a bill that would allow school boards across the state to decide if they want to let teachers be armed. It's something Republicans hope would keep students safer in the event of a school shooting. That bill was introduced in April. Governor Evers, a Democrat, though, promised to veto it if it ever reaches his desk, saying arming teachers is not the answer.